Hello and welcome back to the British and Irish Eagles podcast. As you might see, if you're looking on camera, I am sitting in sunny Florida, Bonita Springs, just above Naples on the west coast. It is a beautiful 18 degrees Celsius outside, blue clouds, sunshine, looking over a golf course, and some pretty awful golfers have been around the course this morning. I can tell you that. However, we're not here to talk about my holiday, although I'm sure we will a little bit. We're here to talk about the Birds and the fact that the Birds, well, we'd already clinched the East, but we went into Buffalo Bills and we came out with a W. And by golly, is there a lot to discuss from that game. Game of two halves, for sure. The media has been all over the place, nationally, locally, globally. The fan base is up in arms. There's arguments on WhatsApp groups. There's people throwing their toys out of the pram. But the fact remains, the Eagles went in and got the W. So we're going to talk about the game. And I'm, of course, joined by Phil, the fence Mount Stevens, with a lovely Eagles shirt, I might add. Phil, is that a new purchase?
No, that was picked up on Birds Fly Home 2024. Picked up the Kelly Green version and the black version because I thought they're just too nice. So it has definitely seen its fair share of wear. As you may or may not be able to tell, it's on its way out, but love it to bits and I can't stop wearing it. So
wow,
it's on tonight.
It's looking good on you, sir, on this New Year's Eve that it is. And I doff my non-existent hat to you, Phil, for jumping on the podcast at 6:19 p.m. local time in the UK.
Getting in the way of some drinking time, man. Come on.
Well, I saw a glass of wine there on the side. I'm not sure we're getting too much in the way of drinking time. Before we get into the podcast, Phil, what does your evening look like on New Year's Eve? Is kids down? Hootenanny, or what are we doing in the Mount Stevens household?
It is very much dependent on what the kids decide to do. They're currently, as you may or may not be able to hear, if the microphone picks it up, splashing and screaming around in the bath currently. Once I finish this podcast, I've got to go and put one of them down to sleep. He's usually pretty good. The other one, on the other hand, not so much. So it's very much, it could go one of two ways. It could be a very nice, peaceful couples evening, some nice food, some wine, and Crash Bandicoot on the Nintendo Switch.
Nice.
To throw a bit of a curveball.
Racing or the original Crash Bandicoot?
Oh, the original. I picked up today. I sort of went around CEX and I was like, do you know what? Lottie's, she's not a big gamer, but there's a few games like Tekken and Crash Bandicoot that she's played in it. And I was like, do you know what? That might be quite a fun thing to do on New Year's Eve, considering the TV is utter pish. But we will probably stick on.
What food did you get in, Phil? What food what are we cooking?
Now, this is also going to sound a bit odd. Those that might know, my dad works for a cook's company, and he's purchased us a seafood thermidor pie. No idea whether it's any good enough.
Thermidor pie. That sounds very posh.
It looks very posh. It's about I'm not going to say how much it is. It's a lot of money, and it's very big. It's about 6 people's worth, so definitely more than enough food. So I'm going to do some of that, and got some champagne courtesy of Tony that's been chilling and been kept at bay over the Christmas period. Now chilling, ready for tonight to sort of crack up open and bring in the new year. But yeah, it's going to be very, very quiet. Some nice food, some nice drink, and just the usual. Can't do much else really.
Is that the Blue Box champagne? I'm trying to remember the name of it now.
PF, yes.
Yeah, we'll have to get that name before the end of the podcast. Shout out to Loch Lomond Whiskey Group. Or do you know it? Do you have it off the top of your head?
PF.
Yes, of course it is. Yeah, fantastic. Well, before we get into this, I'll give you guys an update on my plans. After this, I'm going to go and help Tony cook at a family friend's house. He's doing lamb shanks for everyone. There's about 9 of us tonight for New Year's Eve. However, the last time I had a lamb shank was in an Indian curry in Southampton about 14 years ago. And I was not very well, shall we say, after that. And I've not had lamb shanks since. So I've been to the butcher's and I picked myself up a filet mignon steak or tenderloin, as they call it over here, as a backup for my dinner this afternoon. There'll be lots of nice wines and jacuzzi and pool action going on over here in sunny Florida. So I'll send you some. We'll have to do a Happy New
Why not,
Year's.
man?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do a Happy New Year's earlier because it'll be 7 p.m. where I am when you guys are turning it in. Weirdly, again, before we get to the ball out, a buddy of mine is in Australia right now. So at 8:46 a.m. this morning, which was 12:46 Australia time on the 1st of January, was messaging our group saying Happy New Year's a full day before we were celebrating it. So whoever you are listening in all around the world, Eagles fans, Happy New Year, and we wish you a merry 2026 as well. All right, let's get into what we're here for, Phil, and let's talk about the Birds, the playoff run that or the options for what the playoff run could look like. But before we do that, let's just get to some basics of what we saw. So it's a tale of two halves, Phil. There's no surprise that we're saying that the offense looked good in the first half. Some people are saying looked fair. I think they looked good, considering the conditions that they were playing in. And 13-0 up going into halftime, to then not have a single pass completed in the second half. We'll talk about why we think that was the reason. And they stuttered to a 13-12 win over the Bills. And the team and players and coaches have been lambasted, it's fair to say, over the last few days. But the Eagles did get the W. They did go in the last ever game at the Bills Stadium as well. And they won in what was a dreary, wet and windy day up there in Buffalo. Josh Allen was sacked 5 times. Jalen Carter had a monster game. Jalen Hunt had a great game as well. We held them to the fewest points so far this season. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy. We're going to look at how the NFC is shaking up for the playoffs, and we'll discuss where we think the Eagles could finish in the rankings. And I might have to open up last week's podcast notes, or the week before, sorry, to see where me and Tony are shaping up from our predictions on the last rankings that we did as well. So, Phil, before we go any further, just your overall feeling on the Eagles after that performance, touching on both offensive, defensive, and coaching before we get into it.
It's amazing how we come back week on week and build up a lead or have a really good half of football, and then somehow don't expect us to be so poor in the second half. And it's happened so many times this season. And this game was just a classic example, as you've just mentioned, 13-0. Looking at a shutout right up until we decide to make it incredibly close. And it's just so frustrating, whatever the reasons are. It's just the story of the season. It's just been we haven't been able to put together one complete game of football, and it's frustrating as hell. And you find yourself, and I feel like the conversations that we have in the WhatsApp group are like so intense because there's half of us that are getting so frustrated, just want a complete game of football, and then the other
Mm-hmm.
half that maybe is slightly more able to look at the bigger picture and go, well, we're winning games and we're going to the playoffs. And it's like both sides have a valid point of view. It's like, is it too much to ask for just a complete game of football and the win? Why does it have to be one of those? Why can't we be frustrated? Um, and legitimately criticize the team despite them winning. It sounds like ingratitude when you're,
Mm-hmm.
I want this and I want this as well, and it's life doesn't work out that way. But this is just so extreme that it's like, hang on a minute, I think we're well within our rights to still be hammering this team despite the
Mm-hmm.
position they're in, because it's so drastic. It's not just like, oh, they're not playing great. They're playing great and then terribly, and it's like there's two different teams on the field, and I think
Jekyll
that's
Hyde, isn't
that's
it?
it is, and it's just so infuriating that we're coming away from these games going, yeah, but we won, but the conversations are still there, and it really doesn't help when Sirianni and Petula are coming out saying some outrageous comments, quotes. Oh, we're running just for the sake of running, to paraphrase. I know it's a little bit nuanced, and he probably didn't mean it exactly like that, and it's all taken out of context here, there, and everywhere. But that kind of just it makes sense. It's like, you do look like you're just running for the sake of it, so I believe you, even if
Mm-hmm.
that's not the truth. But
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, man. But
I
yeah,
think
so yeah,
Mick
go on.
summed it up nicely on the WhatsApp group. we were chatting about, like, do you want to win or do you want to play sexy football? And Mick was like, why can't we have both? It's hard, right? It's Eagles fans want to see them play attacking football. Eagles fans like a quarterback that can throw as well as run. But at the end of the day, the Eagles did get the dub. But on the flip side, you could say, had Josh Allen not choked again with a wide open right receiver in the end zone, then we would have lost that game. And it would have been even worse. I mean, the noise would have been way louder had we lost that game in the manner in which we attacked or didn't attack the second half, as the case was. So there were a lot of things at play here, right? And we're going to get into these. We could talk about the offensive play calling by Petula. We could talk about Sirianni's comments about needing to be better in the second half and helping Petula out more. We could talk about the offensive line not having a great game and the run game not playing well either. We could talk about Jalen Hurts missing a couple of throws. We could talk about the referees having probably the worst officiating performance I've ever seen against the Eagles. It was bordering on blatant. And I think the key, and look, no one in this podcast is going to say the referees are the reason it was 13-2. Other people can say that, and they have every right to say that. But what they weren't, Phil, was they weren't consistent. And we're going to get into that as well. I don't mind if the refs get a call wrong here or wrong there, but they have to be consistent on both sides of the ball when they're calling plays. And the reality is they weren't. So there are a lot of mitigating factors that come into this second half performance. You could call it the perfect storm. But I think we've already said that a couple of times on this podcast this year. And I think it all boils down now. I mean, hot off the press, I suppose, today for people listening in, the Eagles will be resting Jalen Hurts and most of the starters. So we can maybe have a discussion about which starters you think they might get reps, Phil. We're all around the podcast. And Washington don't want to win either. I mean, they're butt hurt, right? And they'll probably want to beat us, but they're also, if their organization is in any way well run, they should be looking for a higher draft pick. Beating the Eagles doesn't help them achieve that. So while the conditions may be different, we could see a similar scoreline when we play Washington on my birthday, Phil, the 4th of January. So I've got Newcastle Palace, Eagles again at 10 a.m. Eastern time, followed by 4:25. I've got the Birds versus Washington. We're going out with Matt and Aaron, who are long-time British and Irish Eagles members as well. All right, Phil, before we get into the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy, should we go to the Loch Lomond ad read and we'll get into it?
Sounds good.
Celebrate victories, rally through challenges, and bond with fellow fans as you toast with a dram of Loch Lomond single malt whisky. From tailgating gatherings to watch parties at home, Loch Lomond whisky becomes an essential companion, enhancing the moments that make football so extraordinary. It's the perfect accompaniment, from the joy of victory to the bittersweet moments of defeat. Loch Lomond offer a wide range of malts, with their flagship perfectly balanced, and signature expressions Inchmoan and Inchmuren to suit any taste palette. Celebrate greatness on and off the field this season with a perfect balance of Loch Lomond whisky and Eagles football. From the first pour to the crowd roar. Fly Eagles fly.
Man, do I miss Inchmuren a lot. I was just thinking, listening in to Mick's ad read there. The 12-year-old British and Irish Eagles, Philly Sports International whiskies are great, but I'm going to have to go and get myself a bottle of Inchmuren next time I'm over, for sure, to bring back with me. You got any Inchmoan in your household at the moment, Phil?
No, but I've got a bottle of Perfectly Balanced just over my left shoulder. So, but I've got an Inchmoan. I do have an Inchmoan downstairs. You are right.
You're gonna have a little tipple tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good man. Maybe I'll give you and Nick a call just after midnight. Toast the whiskey. All right, look, let's get into the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy. We're in a bit of a festive mode right now, so it's quite a relaxed podcast. But we need to get into this, and so let's go for it. The good, the bad, and the damn right sexy. I have to start off in the bad column, Phil. It doesn't feel right to start in the good column. Plus, let's end on a bit of positivity towards the end of the podcast. But offensive play calling. I'm just going to shut my mouth up and pass it right over to you, buddy.
Well, we've kind of already touched on it. I let slip a little bit earlier. That's where my frustration, everyone's frustration is at the moment. It's the offensive play calling. It's inexcusable. It doesn't make sense. It's baffling. It's frustrating. There's so many different ways to describe it. But I think it's just boiling over now. Now we're getting to the business end of the season and we're about to head into the playoffs. Now people aren't going to put up with it. Yeah, do you want to win ugly? Do you want to win at all? Blah, 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 whatever. So that's fine during the regular season, but it's put up or shut up time when you get to the playoffs, and we cannot afford to be playing like that on offense when it's going to be the best teams in the NFC, arguably. No, we
What's
might get
the
lucky
reason?
and
What's the reason, Phil? Sorry to jump in there. Like, so there's three possible scenarios that I see with why the offensive play calling was the way it was in the second half. Scenario number one is they were 13 points up, Bills weren't scoring, and they just wanted to eat the clock and back their defense, and they didn't want to show any of their plays that they're keeping for the playoffs, right? That's option one, right? That's the optimists' option, okay? Option two, which is more concerning, but also not as bad as option three, and that is Nick Sirianni has realized that he needed to get involved in the play calling. He did it for the last couple of days. He did it for the first half, and he stepped back in the second half and gave Petulo a shot, and it didn't work, right? Option three, he's just terrible. Of those three options, where do you sit? Is it somewhere between option 2 and 3? Is it somewhere between
somewhere
option 1
between one and
and 2?
two.
Okay.
Somewhere between 1 and 2. I think it's right, and you mentioned that there's a couple of refereeing calls and missed drop passes or so on and so forth. There's a couple of moments if they'd gone right, the offense would have had some oomph maybe in the second half. What's also true is that Sirianni has been taking more of an involvement and he was in the first half, and then he handed it back. Why? Because he's desperate for Petulo to be good. So he's
Well, they're
hoping that
best
he's done
buds.
enough. It's like handing someone back like a situation where they can't possibly mess it up, but 13
I've
nothing
got
is
a good
not.
analogy, right? You're playing a game of FIFA back in the day with your buds, right? It's you against another guy online, and you play the first half, you go 3-0 up, and you pass it to your buddy thinking you can't possibly fuck it up from here, and it goes to
Basically,
penalty.
yeah. Yeah. Basically, and I think he is so desperate for Petulo to be a success or to redeem himself that he is trying. If he takes over completely, then that's Petulo done. He's done. He's trying to go like, hey, I only called the first half, but we were still great in the second half. But it's just not working. But I think there's even Sirianni's got to get to the point and realize that that's just not going to work. It's clearly that Petulo hasn't got the dressing room. He's lost Hurts now. I think there was a video circulating today. Hurts is now pissed off, so that's him gone.
Yeah.
I don't think it's redeemable. If we win the Super Bowl, if we get to the Super Bowl, if we are successful in the playoffs, it is going to be because of the defense, and the offense has done just enough. There is no
And
chance.
Sirianni it just is influencing the offensive. Like,
Yeah, maybe.
can we win with Petulo calling the offense in the playoffs?
No,
is that
no,
possible, even with the defense?
not a chance in hell, and I don't
Unless
care.
he's hoodwinked all of us and keeping it all under
No,
wraps until the playoffs.
that's no. We've been.
You think there's? I think there's a 25% chance that's the case. 20 to 25%
5% chance. 5% chance. And it's purely because if we had this conversation week 5, week 6, I'd be with you. I'd be like, yeah, okay. And I think I was. That's where we were at that time. It was giving the team a chance. Okay, maybe there's a method to the madness, but there hasn't been. It's been the same turgid inability to stranglehold a game and see it out and be convincing. There's not been one convincing performance which has been strong from start to finish. Maybe one, maybe one about, I can't remember what it was. I think it's the Giants one, but again, Dable got fired pretty much straight after that game. There's not been one game where we can, aside from the Raiders recently, but then that, you spoke about it on the podcast previously,
Yeah.
that they are that bad that anyone can beat them. It's done for me. It's just so far done. Even if he wins the Super Bowl, we're not going to get. It's fast forward. Say we do get to the Super Bowl and we're in Passyunk Avenue again. I know you won't be, but I might be. It's not going to be the same kind of night. It's not going to be one of those nights where we're like, we can't believe how well it's going. It is going to be like it was maybe 2 years before, where it's so nail biting and things aren't quite strong and something's not going to go quite right and Mahomes is going to carve us up again. It's just not. It's not going to be a confident playoff run. It's going to be enjoying the defense and hoping the offense just enough. And that's kind of what they're essentially doing. They're doing just enough and then seeing it out. Why can't they just do it
Put the
for
foot
a
on the
little bit
throat.
longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, just okay. If there's a definitive decision in the management room saying, right, we're going to play hard and fast for the first half and then play tight and safe for the second half. Why not just say, hey, lads, maybe we'll do 3/4 this time, so there's less time for the game to go away. And the argument of playing safe is valid. Like the no turnovers, Jalen Hurts, no turnovers, no fumbles, no nothing, and that's how you win games. And that's also true. But it just feels like they're kind of not. They're saying they're going to do enough, but they're not doing enough. They're kind of
They're barely.
they're falling short of the line where you would think, yeah, okay, you
Yeah.
can start. Okay, you can take your foot off the gas. The foot should not be taken off the gas until Tanner McKee is in at quarterback
If that game
because the
finished
game is
20
out of
to,
sight.
if that game finished 20-12, the Bills still got the 12 points, but the Eagles had won by 8 points. I think everyone would have felt a lot better because it wouldn't have felt like it felt going down the stretch in the fourth quarter. We would have felt like we had enough of a cushion. But just while we're here, the offensive play calling rightly should shoulder, in my opinion, 60% to 65% of the blame for the second half. What I don't think is being spoken about enough, and I've mentioned it on the WhatsApp group, and I haven't listened to any other Eagles podcasts really in the last 2 months, to be honest, is the offensive line. Now, I'm not giving Petula a pass here because he ran the ball too much. I think I said live that I would have run the ball a bit in the fourth quarter to eat the clock because of the point differential, but I wouldn't have run it as much. But the offensive line, and again, this goes back to play calling, but also execution. It's predictable. I think I can't remember which beat writer was talking about it on Twitter, but every time Calcaterra is lined up in a blocking position, the Eagles go against the opposite way every single time. So the defense knows how to prepare for that. Cam Jurgens, I don't understand how he got a Pro Bowl nomination this year. I genuinely don't. I have to go and check out how bad the other centers were because, I haven't seen incredible performances from him this year. And he got blown up a couple of times by D tackles, like he was a toy being passed aside.
He's definitely under the spotlight after this game. I've noticed there's been a
Concerning.
lot of attention on his bad play, and that's concerning.
It is concerning. I know we're missing Lane, but Jordan Mailata hasn't had his best year. Landon Dickerson's been injured on a band up. He hasn't had his best year. Tyler Steen's been okay. The offensive line have got a shoulder. In my opinion, I'm giving the offensive line 25% of the blame. I'm giving Petullo and Sirianni 65% of the blame, and then I'm putting 20% on the blame on everyone else. Not even just everyone else.
But to counter that, Jurgens and that offensive line is playing the whole game. So that offensive line and that offense is capable. It's not like we're not seeing it at all, and the whole game is very turgid or very like a struggle. They are doing enough, but what they think is enough is not enough, and they need to do it for longer, do it harder, do it faster. I don't care. It's a case of if they're worried about endurance, like they can only go on full power for 2 quarters, then that speaks of other problems: conditioning, game plan,
and injuries,
fitness, injuries.
Yeah,
it needs the. I'd agree with you if that were the case, but it's the fact that they can do it. They're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by doing it and then not doing it.
Yep. Excuse me, I completely agree. Okay, elephant in the room. I know if Mr. Tony Fletcher was on this podcast, and he's not, he's beginning to cook the lamb shanks. He would put some of the blame on Jalen. His opinion when he collected me from Fort Myers Airport the other day was that he's worried that the Eagles, that Jalen can't run a complex offense. That's his major worry. As I say that, he's just entered the fray into the kitchen. How much stock do you put in that opinion, Phil, that this offense is looking the way it is because Jalen can't run more complex offenses? Or like you say, do you just put it down to Petulo in that second half of play calling? The amalgamation of him running for his life from the offensive line and throwing it out of bounds, coupled with drops, coupled with referee calls, coupled with just bad play calling in general. Where do you sit on that?
Look, Jalen is a very good quarterback. I'm going to stop short of using the E word because I don't want to divide too many people. I don't want to focus on whether I think he's elite or not.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I feel like he is limited in certain ways, and there are certain factors that need to align for him to operate. Whether that's, you can argue that's no longer talent because he's had the talent.
Mm-hmm.
Play calling clearly there is a certain type of play calling. There's a certain type of offense that Jalen suits, and when he's in that offense, he thrives. So it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. Jalen Hurts is elevated by the play calling, and the play calling is elevated by Jalen Hurts. They have to match. They have to fit.
I
And
would
if they
agree.
don't, which it's not at the moment, or it is, at least it's not enough. He's able to do enough to get us the points and get some points on the board, but we are not seeing the ruthless, efficient offense that we're used to seeing. And some of the blame will go at Jalen, whether he's playing too safe one week or not safe enough and having 5 interceptions or turnovers against the Chargers. It was. I feel like there is a balance that needs to be struck with Jalen Hurts, and when that balance is struck, he is an elite quarterback. But unless the conditions are met, so that feeds into the argument people believe is a system. I'm not saying he's a system quarterback. I mean, I'm talking about more than just the system: play calling, talent, ability to run the offense himself, and to go off script. He is not being allowed to go off script. He is not being given the play calling to do it. So he can audible out of plays, but if the audible out is a pile of shit as well, he's going to be like, well, it's a pile of shit A or pile of shit B. Like, which one do I want to pick? Like, which one's going to have the most chance of success or have the least amount of negative yardage on the play? And I think Tony's right in certain aspect of it, because I don't think Jalen is able to excel despite the play calling. He's able to do a really good job, and he is a very good quarterback, and he can manage it very well. But I feel like he is not at that super tier where he could be in the Raiders offense and drag them through the mud. He needs the supporting cast as well.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the play calling pans out in the off season. Whether Sirianni will be more involved like he was in the first half and the last couple of games, or whether Jalen will be given that flexibility to make changes at the line more than he has. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe for a second that Jeffrey Lurie is sitting there happy with getting in the playoffs in the manner in which they've got there. And while we know Jeffrey Lurie is not a micromanaging chairman and owner like Jerry and co are, there's rumors of them literally calling down to the coach on the sideline to call specific plays. While Jerry is not that bad, well Lurie, isn't that bad. He is well known to get involved when he's not happy with how things are going.
There will be changes at the end of the season for sure.
Yeah, a la Carson Wentz towards the end, and he was down on the training field, and recently when he was down on the training field with AJ Brown and Big Dom, etc. I guarantee you he's pulling Howie and Sirianni into the room, and he's saying, I know you've backed this guy. You've backed the wrong horse before, and then we got you a experienced, creative play caller, and that was a huge success. You've had your 2 chances now. There won't be a third. You're not picking the next offensive coordinator. We are, and I wouldn't be surprised if the message from Lurie to Sirianni and Petulo after the game we just saw is that's it. offensive consultant in the building, who we don't know who it is, has more clout and more responsibility. Sirianni does, and Patullo. To save face, we're going to give you a clipboard, but we're going to be calling the plays into your ear for you to call them into the team or something like that. I would not be surprised. Jeffrey Lurie does not like to be made a fool of, at all, and I would not be surprised if that happens. I'm not in the slightest way concerned about Hurts, and that won't be a shock to anyone listening in to this podcast either, because I've seen him do it. I've seen him be Super Bowl MVP. I've seen him carry the team on his back when he's needed to, when it really matters, in the important moments. Jalen Hurts doesn't miss that throw in the end zone like Josh Allen did. He makes that throw when it matters. So I've no doubt about his talent. My mom always says, you don't become a bad player overnight in any sport. And when he's been given the opportunity to make those throws, and when he's been given the opportunity to, when the ball hasn't been dropped, and when they've had those more creative, schemed play calls, which we have seen in the last couple of weeks before the Bills game, and there was a couple in the first half of the Bills game as well, then he has played the way we'd expect him to play. Jalen can't do anything if he's being told to throw a hitch route, or he's handing the ball up to Saquon. If he's handing the ball up to Saquon up the middle 3 out of 4 times a drive, like, Jalen can't do anything about that. He's being told what to do, and he's executing on that. If we were in a scenario, Phil, where Jalen was throwing the ball 25 to 30 times a game, and he had a passing completion percentage in the 50s, and he was just missing players wide open, then sure, I would be on board. But that's not the case. He made 2 or 3 play throws into tight coverage against the Bills in the first half, that other quarterbacks I don't think can make. So look, I'm not. When you talk about changes in the offseason, it ain't going to be Jalen. Will it be Patullo? Absolutely. I have no doubt he will not be the offensive coordinator next year. Will it be Sirianni? I think he's probably earned himself another year, but it will be on the proviso that he is not allowed to pick the offensive coordinator, and he can still be his offense, right?
Sirianni will be back. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I think it is going to be the offensive coordinator whether Patullo goes back, because you look at how Kellen Moore's done in New Orleans, which looks on paper at the start of the season pretty much an impossible task. And I'm not saying they've done particularly well, but if you look at the second half of the season for the New Orleans Saints, Tyler Shutt looks pretty good. Olave has been bowling, and I feel like Kellen Moore definitely was a positive impact, whether he runs complicated offenses or not. Remember you and me having a conversation out in Philadelphia last year where Kellen Moore's offense was slightly too complicated, but it suddenly started working. Something there was able to be adjusted. Kellen Moore is clearly a better offensive coordinator than Patullo. Patullo thought that he had the heir apparent because he's been in the offense, and he strikes me as the sort of guy who would be in the boardroom meetings coming up with a really good idea once in a while and gets a lot of kudos, and people think this guy's actually pretty good because he's coming up with these good ideas, but he's got nothing else. He's got these 5 ideas, and he helped come up with a dagger, or he helped maybe come up with a few plays that were key to the Eagles' Super Bowl success. But actually, when you pile in running an offense, not just the passing game, not just the quarterback side of things, the running game, the offensive line, everything that goes with it, he's out of his depth. He's not capable.
He looks out of his depth. When you hear him talking in press conferences, when you see him on the sideline,
he knows he's done.
Yeah. I walked. Did I tell you I walked by him in the Novacare Center? Like,
you did mention that once
with Tony. Yeah, okay, I did. Yeah, fair enough. He was with Dave O'Philly, the guy who works for all the celebrities and is friends with Big Dom. But I didn't recognize him when I saw him.
I wouldn't recognize him if I saw him in the street.
He was carrying pizzas.
I don't want to look at him.
He was carrying pizzas in with Big Davo to have.
He was carrying the pizzas.
Yeah, pretty sure he was. Yeah,
that's all he's good for.
That or Davo, one of them was. All right, let's move on. Also in the bad column, I put the offensive line in there. I think it deserves to be in there. There's no doubt about it. The running game wasn't great either. But I'll pass it over to you, Phil. Cam Latu. Thoughts on this?
It was just an afterthought, and you're right. I hastily put these notes together, and I completely forgot to maybe include the offensive line. So it's a valid point. Cam Latu's in there basically because he is the guy that ruined probably one of the greatest punts that you've ever seen from an Eagles
Shout out
perspective,
to
at
our
least. But
punter, by the
maybe,
way. He should be in the good section. He's been fantastic all year.
yeah, I would have. I generally considered putting Braden Mann in the good section,
Yeah,
but the fact is, the reason he's not is because of Cam Latu. Because if if he had that punt, that would have been a reason to put him in. He is good, but he wasn't noteworthy enough to include in the notes. Yeah. The ball had stopped, and
I know.
on second review, I understand why Cam Latu decided to touch the ball because initially you were like, "Why have you touched it? It's already been." It wasn't touched by the player, and I can't remember who was first on the scene. I
Probably
think
Siggy
because that was
Brown.
the reason. Because initially when we were looking, it's a touchback, or he must have touched it. No, it wasn't
Yeah.
touched, and it wasn't until Cam Latu comes on the screen that he places his foot on the line. It's just like, it just annoyed me so much. I had to put it in the bad
So
column
he's
because
put his
that would have
hand
been
on the
that was
ball
such.
just in case another player from the opposition came
Well, if
across.
it had, yeah, because if it hadn't been touched by him, then the return team could still have picked
Yeah.
it up and returned it. So I kind of now second thought maybe it's a bit harsh,
You've
but it
been
was just such a
commenting, yeah.
great pun, and it's a pain in the ass to think of it
But
as
just
a
on Cam Latu, by the way, I saw a stat. He only had 7 snaps on offense, in the fullback position, and we averaged 7 yards or 8 yards per attempt while he got snaps on offense. So while he's in the bad
yeah.
column from a special teams perspective, there's an argument to say he could be in the good column from a offensive perspective, and there's an argument to say if something like that is working as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach, Nick, you need to identify that and do it more in the game because, go running it up the middle is only getting you 2 yards. If you're getting Cam Latu in the game to take out another defensive lineman, then that's what I'd be.
Instead, the brain trust of Patullo and Sirianni decided to put Dallas Goedert at fullback.
Yeah, that was strange. Very strange call.
So
All right, let's get into
on.
the good. Let's get some positivity flowing here. I'm going to start off with someone who I don't think I've ever talked about in a good column before, and that is Marcus Epps. 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. His intensity was awesome. Kind of, Phil, you've made a really good point here. Kind of like what we wished Sidney Brown was: controlled energy, or controlled enthusiasm, athleticism, violence. Like he was hitting players hard. Now, early in the game, I think he did have a DPI, but since that point, he had a fantastic performance. He also had a pivotal goal line stopped and made the safety room seem stronger than perhaps we might have thought it would be pre-game. Now, I don't think the secondary had the best game in the world. But they did enough, and the defensive line and the linebackers were A plus, all around the houses. But Phil, shout out to Marcus Epps. Is he playing his way into another contract with the Birds? Do you think? Wouldn't be a very expensive one, I don't think.
No, and I think that's probably exactly the reason why it would make sense for the Eagles to explore that option because Drew McCuba being injured, we're not sure what's going to happen with him coming back. Reed is obviously solid safety, and as we talked, Sidney Brown is great, but also terrible at exactly the same time. So I think he's kind of doing the Zach Bourne situation where you kind of brought him in on a long shot, just hope that he can help out. Ends up being a
because he had
massive
the ACL
contributor.
injury, didn't he, when he was at the Raiders, and then he had a year at the Patriots before he came across, and he only signed a $1.1 million deal for the Birds this year, whereas at the Raiders,
It'll be a cheap option. You're right,
Yeah.
and I think the safety room is a bit of a question mark with the depth. So having someone like him to sort of help fill the depth chart, but also be a cheap option considering we're going to have to pay a lot of players next year, is important. And I think it's great. It's one of those little positive lights where you go, hey, this is it's like getting a guy off waivers in fantasy football and him being the number 3 wide receiver on the league in Michael Wilson for Arizona Cardinals. So kind of that kind of level of like we found a guy and it's a real boost because we haven't had to pay for him.
Nice comparison. I don't think any of us had Marcus Epps as the diamond in the rough at the start of the year. I'll have to go back and have a look at that podcast. Maybe Tony's screaming into the radio saying I did, but I'm not sure anyone had Marcus Epps on there. All right, Phil, talk to me about the Eagles' leading sack, the Eagles' sack leader in Jalix Hunt.
Yeah, so I don't know if you agree with me or not, Liam, but he's going to be the damn right sexy this week. Jelix Hunt, reading off his stats and just his impact on the game were phenomenal. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, including that 20-plus yarder. Josh Allen running around like a headless chicken. He got him down. 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. It's MVP level stats, personally. If you stretch out across the season, if he has those kind of stats, you're looking at an MVP defensive player sort of level. He's had 4.5 sacks in his last 4 games, with leading the team with 6.5. So he had a bit of a slow start, and I know there was people
It's first time
calling for
starter.
him.
That's what happened. Yeah,
you know,
he's up there with pressures in the
yeah,
league as well, isn't he? He's up there in like the top 4 for QB pressures, which is an awesome stat to have. I mean, that's what people look at even more than sacks sometimes, because you're creating sacks for others.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, and he's come on supremely well. In the first half of the season's a bit slow, but you can see that he's escalating now, and he could very well be the player of the playoffs for the Eagles, being explosive. I mean, some of the hits between him and Jalen Carter, I thought Josh Allen was going to die. I generally thought he was going to be running for his life.
Was
And to be
limping
honest,
for half of the game.
when you talk about impact in a game that isn't on the stat sheet, you get hit 2 or 3 times by a guy, then it affects how you play for the rest of the game. And I'm pretty sure that Josh Allen was very much acutely aware of the Eagles' defense. And if it's a Fangio scheme, hit him hard, hit him early, then all the credit to him. But at the same time, the execution from the players, Jalix Hunt coming in, Jalen Carr smashing them, some real thunderous hits. I think I mentioned to Gary, who did the hype videos for the Super Bowl for us in the group, that he definitely needs to do a Here Comes the Boom type video just of those hits, because it's on one particular drive. It's like three massive hits, and it's absolutely phenomenal to watch. Really enjoyable watch, and because he's so young, he's obviously under contract for a while. It's good to have that coming in when the edge is a position that has always been under question. Brandon Graham helps coming back into that, but it feels like we've got a nice young group with a good dash of experience coming in there that's going to really help drive the Eagles coming onto the Super Bowl playoff run.
Yeah, and shout out to my boy who's only half sack behind him, getting another one this weekend in Mario Ajomo, who just seems to just be an absolute player. Jordan Davis had a great game again, and shout out to Jalen Carter, who after surgery on his shoulder has been he's much improved. There was talk of him not being able to do a press up. I don't know if you heard that in the preamble before the game. One of the strongest guys in the league. I got a personal trainer at the moment, Phil. I don't know if I told you, started with him a few weeks ago, and he was talking to me about the difference between like gym strength and strength. So it's like endurance strength versus like one max strength versus endurance strength being so different. And like you look at Jalen Carter in the locker room, and you're like, all right, he's a big guy, but I'm not seeing muscles bulging all over the place. His arms are big, but he doesn't look like Aaron Donald did, for example. But he just has that raw core power and strength. So the fact that he couldn't do a press up and he was still playing is mind-boggling. Here's the hope, and he's back at his best, and he certainly looked like he was getting back to his best with this performance. 1 tackle, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, QB hit, and a pass defended. And didn't he block the punt as well? The field goal, Phil.
You can argue that he's the reason why we won the game. I think
you can argue
if you want to look at one moment,
he's damn right sexy as well. We'll give it to Jalix Hunt, but right there with maybe Loch Lomond play of the game should be the blocked
he might be in there.
Oh, it is. Oh, awesome. So yeah, big shout out to Jalen Carter as well. And before I pass you over, Dallas Goddard, Jalen Phillips had another great game. He was dominant. He had a sack, but he was also involved in the forced fumble and the 20-yard loss by Josh Allen. And I mentioned Mario Jomo as well. The secondary didn't have the greatest game, but they certainly didn't have a bad game. And pass you over Dallas Goddard, Phil. Talk to me about why he's in the good part of the good, the bad, and damn right sexy.
A guy who many of us were not going to be sorry to see him leave in the off season because his availability last season, in general, has always been in question. But this season, he is really stepped up in a turgid offense. He's had a couple of really shining moments, and then again, he's on a little streak of touchdowns in games. I'm not sure how it is. I don't think it's consecutive necessarily, but I swear he's on about 4 or 5 in the last 6 games. And he's being what a tight end should be, which is a bit of a safety net, but that strong presence when who's always available. That Travis Kelce's type role where it's like he always seems to be there, ready. You know, the fact that Jalen Hurts has so many other options to go for adds to that, in my opinion,
Yes,
because
four in his last 3 games, Phil.
4 in his last 3, so even better than I was remembering. But
yeah, averaging. He's not averaging loads of yards. He's averaging about 30
no,
40
I mean,
yards.
yeah. Speaking of stats, it's 3 receptions off 6 targets for 8 yards in this game and a touchdown. You wouldn't have thought that would be stats enough to
He's
get
got.
him
Did
in
you
the
know
good.
he's got 11 touchdowns this year.
That's what I mean.
That's
He,
what, 600 yards, 11 touchdowns, and that's him. Missing a game or two, I believe,
you
as
can
well.
argue he's having a career season, especially on. And at the end of the day, you want him to be scoring touchdowns. He's had some great games for the Eagles, especially harking back to the last year's Saints game. One particular moment that always stands out, but like in a game where he's literally not even getting 10 yards, he's only catching half his targets, but he is in the good column because he is getting the moments when it matters, and he is catching the ball in the end zone for the only touchdown in the game, in a game where the offense is really struggling, and the refs are against us as well. Admittedly, I think just giving him a shout out just because he's just having a great season all
Yep.
round.
Do we bring him
And
back next year, Phil?
I think he might have to be. I definitely think that the Eagles 100% need to get a tight end in the draft, but that's not necessarily because Dallas Goedert isn't good enough anymore. It's more he needs help. He's not had, the tight end room has been Dallas Goedert and then, people who cannot really do the job. And like you said earlier, with the blocking side of things, not carrying out their assignments properly and giving the defense a clear indication of where the ball is not going. So not providing any value to the team. We need to sign someone, whether it's to compete and eventually take over. I would suggest it needs to be like a day 2, maybe day 3 tight end in the draft for me. Someone who's good enough to support, maybe take over, but not to replace.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. Just while you were chatting about Dallas Goedert there, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on the wide receiver room. Not a lot to talk about in this game. A couple of good catches from AJ Brown. Obviously, the non-catch for Devontae Smith, which everyone believes was a catch and should have been ruled a catch, and his stat line would have been better. Actually, I think if he made that catch, he would have had 1,000 yards for the season. Phil, he has 960 odd. Did you know that AJ Brown has 1,003 yards for the season? So 1 KO.
It's amazing how he's still managed to get his 1,000 yards.
Nor do I.
Great then.
Now here's a question for you. Do you think Devontae Smith plays a few snaps to get his 1,000 yards? There's probably some. I would be surprised if there wasn't some bonuses in play for Devontae Smith. I don't think they'll play AJ. But do you play Smitty for a few snaps to get his 1,000 yards? Do you think?
Someone, I think it was the WhatsApp group. Someone made a good point earlier this evening. I read it on the question of resting, but the offense hasn't done enough to deserve rest. They need more reps. They need to figure whatever the hell's going on. And I completely agree with that. And so on that level, no. But that being said, something they need the reps. I think that they'll maybe however many of the defensive players are on the field for this game, there'll definitely be a starting offensive line, a few wide receivers. I reckon Devontae Smith will plead his case to get 1,000 yards for sure. I think there's definitely
you're rested. Obviously, Lane's not going to play. You probably don't play Dickerson because he's still a bit banged up. Then maybe you play the other 3 offensive linemen. You don't play
rest for injuries.
You don't play AJ, Hurts, or Barkley. So you play Tank, You obviously play QB2, and then you play maybe Smitty, Goddard, and Dotson and Cooper. Is that how you go with, or am I wrong? Any disagree with on that?
Yeah, I think sort of like a 1B offense, like pretty much will look largely the same, but there won't be any drastic changes. So Tank Bisbee being the running back and giving Saquon won't feel like too much of a change. It'll be an
Yep.
obvious we're resting Saquon, but this is still our 1B guy or 2A guy.
Mhm.
Wide receiver wise, yeah, AJ Brown maybe doesn't. There's no need to risk him. Devontae
Not
Smith
now he's
just
got
to
his
get a few more
1,000 yards.
yards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not now he's.
and I think Darius, you want to see a bit more Darius Cooper. So it won't be so
Yep.
much. It'll be an equal part resting / wanting to see what the fringe players. It's the benefit of having a preseason game
Yeah.
um, mid-season or towards the end of the season, just to kind of give the guys who are on the periphery. You want to see a bit more, but you don't want it to be in a high stakes game. Just blooding in some more youngsters. I think so. I think it'll be sort of like a 50-50 split between starters and fringe players on offense.
What
Defensive
about
side, who
what
knows?
about the defensive side of the ball?
Who knows? I mean, you can
I mean,
argue that they.
I'm resting Q. I'm resting Coop. I'm resting Carter because he's only just back from an injury. I'm probably giving Jordan Davis a break. I'm probably playing Mario Jomo just to keep him going. Maybe you get Ty Robinson in there at D tackle.
I think it
I'm
depends a lot on what happens with the Bears game.
you
I think
think?
if there's a
Well, they
chance of
might not
getting the
suit
two
up.
seed, they might.
They might not suit up though, Phil. You'll be right. So, like, if they decide players aren't playing for the start, they won't be able to come into the game because they won't be suited up.
No,
So
I
you're going to
feel
have
like
to
there
make
will be a
that all
factor into that
pre-game.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. I think again it'll probably be some sort of like a 50-50 split between resting players that they really don't need to play, blooding some periphery depth players, but trying to make sure there's enough of the skeleton there to get the job done. Because at the end of the day, if there's a chance of getting the two seed, you have to go for it. I'd love to rest players, and I feel like there's a balance that will be struck there, but you can't go one way or the other. You can't completely play both offensive defensive starters and risk injury, and you can't play third stringers the whole game through and risk losing the game when the two seed was potentially within your grasp.
I mean, just to be clear, I'm probably one of the only people. Well, maybe not. I'm certainly in the minority of people who would play the starters for the first half. I would play the starters for the first half, drive up a big score, and then rest with them for the second half and
That's what they've
maximize.
been doing the rest of the season.
Well, true. Except they haven't changed the players. Yeah.
That's right, it might carry on.
That's what I would do. To be clear, I know that's not going to happen, but I would play the starters for the first half. You're putting Jalen at risk every single game of the season. I would much rather play the Packers than either the 49ers or the Rams. By the way, to be clear, right now, I think we beat the 49ers or the Rams anyway, especially where the Rams are playing. They're just taking the pin out of a grenade and threw it into their own bathroom right now. It's crazy to see what's going on at the Rams. They're imploding. 49ers are looking stronger than they did at any point during the season, albeit their run and their schedule was pretty weak. So here's a question for you, Phil. Obviously, we want the Packers, and that's a possibility, I think, over the Rams and the Niners. Who do you want to play out of the Rams and the 49ers? If you had the casting die, who would you choose to play?
It's really tough because the Niners have come on really strong. It feels like it's a middling team playing well in the 49ers, or a really good team maybe not playing so well towards the end of the season in the Rams. They kind of feel like they're about the same in terms of fear factor. So ultimately, I guess I'd rather
You're
face the Niners because I
you're
feel
the
like
fence.
we can. No, yeah, I am. But if I have to pick one, I'd probably go the Niners just because I love beating the Niners.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got a better chance of beating the Niners, despite Brock Purdy having a good season. I feel like with the Rams, they're out for blood, and they will really. I'm not saying they can. They're any more dangerous. I just feel like there's. It's just a gut feeling. I feel like I'd go with the Niners, but I think that's another reason, like you said, going for the Packers. That's another reason to go for the two seeds because I think the Packers are not only are you guaranteeing more chance of a home field game throughout the playoffs, but you're also playing an easier team in the wildcard round. So I
Yeah.
think they should
And
try their best to go for it.
well, San Fran play the Seahawks. and if the Seahawks win, they clinch the number 1 seed. And if the 49ers win, they clinch number 1 seed. However, if Seattle win and clinch the 1 seed, and the Niners lose, and the Rams win, then we play the Niners. If the Rams lose, regardless of the outcome, we would play the Rams, unless of course the Bears lose and we beat Washington. So there's many permutations still to go. A few of the Eagles could play. All right, we've got to give the Loch Lomond Play of the Week award, Phil, before we wrap things up. So there are 3 options. Do you want to take us away and give us those?
Yeah. So first on the list is the Jihad Campbell fumble recovery. Purely because of the moment in the game, Josh Allen had just thrown an absolute dime down the field to Terrell Shavers, I believe it was. And it was like, oh, God, this is the Bills starting to get their offense going. And on pretty much the next play or the play after that, forced fumble. I think it might have even been Jalex Huntley forced the fumble, but it's the moment that Jihad Campbell, and yes, the person he was racing was a guard, but he's not. He's quite an athletic guard, but he started about 20 meters back, and he beat him to the ball and pushed him off it and got that ball, and that was such a key bit because that led to the touchdown. Eagles Dallas got a touchdown, so that really swung the game back in
He
our
also
favor.
made, I don't know if he got an interception, but he definitely defended a couple of passes where he had to show incredible closing speed. So I've been banging on about seeing him at defensive edge, but the way he's playing at linebacker now, I don't think
when he
can
gets
do
his
it.
chance, and it's like a luxury of riches having N'Kobe Dean, Jihad Campbell, and Zach Bourne on the field. You can't do that. So when one of them's out with a small injury, we hope with N'Kobe Dean, it's good. It's an exciting thing. It's a bit like the Tanner McKee, Jalen Hurts situation. You don't mind seeing Tanner McKee. You just don't want the reason to be that Jalen Hurts is not on the field. It's just one of those situations. It's exciting to have, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those players at the end of the season. But that's an off-season podcast topic. The next
Sure.
Loch Lomond Play of the Week is kind of, or drive is the Eagles goal line stand. So first and goal for the Bills at the Eagles 7-yard line, and the Eagles turn it over on downs through 4 amazing defensive plays. I feel like the defense as a whole, we mentioned that Marcus Epps was key in one of those downs of stopping the run. I just feel like that whole moment just goes to show that how good the defense is, that even when the ball is in such a precarious position, we have absolute faith in the Eagles, and in a position where the offense is desperate to get that touchdown, it almost plays into our hands because we know we can stop them. We can't stop them kicking a field goal. Well, we can. But, it's easier to stop a player than it is to hopefully get a tip on a pass, a tip on a kick going through the upright. So I feel like that was worthy of being mentioned in there. And the third one is, as you mentioned earlier, the Jalen Carter blocking the extra point just because of the pivotal moment in the game. The reason why the Bills had to go for 2. Not to say that on another day they wouldn't have got that 2-point conversion, but had they got that, they would have been kicking the extra point to win the game, which would obviously have been a much more likely outcome than trying to go for 2. So
I think, from in my opinion, while the Eagles are good, I think for that reason alone, that has to be the Loch Lomond Play of the Week.
I agree. I'd agree with that.
Because it was the pivotal play that changed the game. Well, not changed the game, meant that we won. Good stuff, Phil. Well, we're just approaching the hour mark here. It's been good to speak to you from across the pond. Sun's getting hotter through the window here, and the beers are getting colder in the fridge. So I think we'll end it there. Have a wonderful New Year's Eve celebration with your wife. I hope it's quiet and full of fish rather than having to go upstairs and placate the babies and make sure that they're okay. So that's my one New Year's wish for you. I'll send you some photos from the jacuzzi later on today. You'll either see them while you're awake or when you wake up in the morning. I'm sure you'll love to see them, regardless of when that is. And next time I'll be speaking to you,
I look forward to it.
Next time I'm speaking to you, will probably be the 6th or the 7th of January for the post end of season regular season podcast, where we will know who the Eagles are going to be playing in the playoffs. So for now, my new Oakleys are going back on. It's been great to chat to you. Everyone else listening in, we hope you have a fabulous New Year's and a great 2026. We are the British and Irish Eagles. We are Philly Sports International. And as always, go Birds.
Go Birds. Happy New Year.
Cheers, bud.